Hello, my name is Nicholas Bailey.
Hi, I'm Adam.
Hi, I'm Sophia Condit.
My name is Jake Taylor.
I'm Heath Chase.
Hi, I'm Ari Bardak-Mitchell.
I am Haven Joseph Lyon.
And this is Campaign Casters.
With TTRPGs, my history with it especially was, I started when I was 8. My father introduced me. I was with a bunch of people who were like in their 40s, and I was just like literally an 8-year-old, and I created a very basic dwarf character that like would run into action, and I literally would like jump over like hordes of minions, and that because I just found that fun. So that's really where I started, and then like from there, as I got older, I continued to participate in this sort of campaign with these older people. So I was like learning all these things in all these different ways, and it was very melee heavy. So I never understood that there was more to it beyond that. And as I got older, I started doing more D&D stuff, becoming a DM, and even now, I've been DM for 10 years, which is crazy, because that makes me feel old.
How my journey began in the world of the TTRPGs wasn't the best start, I won't lie. I started playing with a group, wasn't quite sure of what I was doing, but as we continued, I started to love the game, but the group kind of divulged. We tried our best, but it fell apart. And then I ended up playing another campaign with Sophia and Adam, ran by a friend of ours named Joey. I never met him, but like we had a few good sessions. That one also kind of fairy dusted. But I then decided I wanted a campaign, and that was Tales of Fodenland, which we have referenced oh so many times, probably throughout the podcast by now, which technically we still need to finish at this moment, but we'll get there. But I definitely wanted Adam and Sophia. Ari too, and then I was like, I want someone new, which was Jake, and then I was like, I want a random person that I don't actually know that well, but I know is good at playing, and it just happened to be Haven. And I like to think that that's kind of what inspired the group for this. Is that a little narcissistic? Yes, but like I'm definitely not wrong because it's the same exact group. So yeah, it feels good, and it just continued on, and obviously no one's gonna say no to recording these hilarious sessions and everything that we do.
I first started playing D&D about 5 years ago. Started off very much sort of how it's ended up, with a group of theater friends who just wanted to introduce me to this fun storytelling game that they loved. And I sort of played on and off throughout that time, but I'm sure you've already heard this in these interviews at this point, but where this all started was with the Tales of Fodenland campaign. Heath, one of our cast members, invited a bunch of us at my goodness, was it the end of 2023? Yeah, something like that, to play a campaign together. And I have never experienced a dynamic like that, and I'm pretty sure that our DMs and our founders can attest that seeing that group work together and playing together in that way is, I think, the reason why campaign casters exist today.
Yeah, I'm very new to the world of TTRPGs. I'm currently still in my first ever campaign. That'll end eventually at some point, I'm sure. Part of it is like scary because I feel like I don't know what I'm doing, but then the more that I do things, the more that I learn, and the more that I feel comfortable with it. This past summer, I've played a lot of Baldur's Gate 3, and that is where most of my D&D knowledge has come from, as of recently. So I don't know how much of it is like actual D&D and how much of it is Baldur's Gate specific, but I feel like I have a pretty decent grip on it now. As far as this project goes, I was just asked to do it because of the other campaign, and I was like, yeah, why not? That sounds fun as hell. So here I am.
2016, my cousin came to come visit me for, just to visit our family. And we were gonna head out to Philly for the day. And he starts explaining to me about this game, Dungeons & Dragons. And I'm like, never heard of it. Thing is, surprisingly enough, I haven't heard of it. And he's like, we're gonna play tonight. So he goes to a Barnes & Noble's, gets me the player's handbook, the Dungeon Master's Guide, right then and there. And that following night, we played Lost Minds of Fandelver. And that is where I'm just like, I played like a human fighter, one of the most basic things you could do. And I was like, this is awesome. And as soon as he left, I had no one to play it with. So there, I became a forever DM.
You guys?
Yeah.
You guys?
And I tried to get everyone involved, but it really just fell short. But it wasn't until I came to college and I met Shane, who is a great friend of ours and the one who is a part of the band Chronophobia, who's providing our theme song for the podcast.
Yeah.
And he introduced me to Haven, and I'm in the digital media space when I was attending Slippery Rock University. So I started recording our Zoom sessions, editing them into like episodes we can watch and posting it just for our group. But then I came up to Haven and I was like, let's start a podcast. Like, we can do this. And that's where that adventure started for.
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of D&D experience back at home. Not really many people did D&D. Closest was my brother, but he did War Machine stuff. When I first came up here to SRU, Slippery Rock University, Sophia, my girlfriend, who the people will get a chance to see her in a minute, but she showed me D&D. I never knew much about D&D. I just saw there's elves and there's orcs and they roll dice and stuff. I'm like, that's cool. And then she told me it was very improv based and a lot of storytelling. And I absolutely adore storytelling and improv. And it just makes me so happy. So I was like, okay, this is cool. And then I started my first campaign, had a dark brooding rogue character. And then after that, I ended up making other characters like a jukebox who plays music for all of his buddies. And it's just been I just love it so much because I'm so connected with improv thanks to my mother. And just doing this podcast, this is like a dream. This is like when I started doing D&D, I was like, this is a new career path I would love to go on to. So just doing a podcast for people just to enjoy, hear our just adventures and just the fun we have just as friends is it's so cool, and it just makes me so happy.
My uncle came to visit and he brought all of the player's handbook, the DM's guide, and kind of showed me the basics. And of course I didn't understand at the time what, I was like, these are huge books, so this is such a big game, I don't understand this. And then he left me with some podcasts to listen to. And then that's, I think, where I got really hooked. And then I continued to play with him, and then I played with some virtual friends online. And that really is where things took off for me. And then obviously I came to college and I was looking for some groups to play with, and I met Haven. And so that's where we kicked off with our couple campaigns there, and then had this really cool offer to do a podcast, which was kind of like a dream and a full circle moment.
As we said before, we faced a lot of challenges.
Yes.
We fought up that road. We were young. We were young. We didn't have a lot of experience. There was a lot of things that we didn't understand of what it took to create a podcast upon this level.
Yeah, and we're still young.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yes.
We're still young. But that was the key thing is at first we were like, oh, let's do a podcast. And then we were already halfway through this D&D game. We just kind of started a podcast, so that was challenge number one.
Yes.
We had started halfway through a game. Not the greatest thing to do in the world. Then we thought we had communicated clearly the expectations that would come with that, and to our surprise and to our dismay, sadly, it wasn't as clear-cut as we thought. So we had to take a lot of different things throughout our journey. Like I went, sorry if I touch my microphone or anything. I went to music school. I did all of these things, and there was just so much stuff in our way. So Nick and I actually had to put off even starting a podcast after the first one crumbled. We decided we're gonna do it, but we're gonna do it the right way.
Yeah.
We're gonna take our time, and we're gonna come up with these things and give it all of our attention and all of the love we can. So hopefully in the future, when that time comes, we can finally create something that is worthy of people's viewership, worthy of people's time, and worthy of our time and our dedication.
The thing is, with all the other D&D podcasts, is that we don't have money, we don't have fame, so we are fans. We are fans of video games, we are fans of TTRPGs,
Of anime,
everything.
of theater, of everything.
So, and what we just want to do is, along with the other fans out there of Dungeons & Dragons and other game space, is just bring everyone with us and just build that community so that we can be alongside of all the, the big leagues. I was a digital media production major, so that entailed of everything that involved social media, project management, photography, social media management, and just a whole other scope of things. So the great thing is, while we had that first failing period of the podcast when we first started off, was that everything that I learned in my class, I could then immediately just apply it to, the podcast itself and learn what to do, learn how to edit, learn how to try and advertise ourselves of graphic design, and kind of get into the marketing things.
I had a lot of leadership capabilities that I was always doing things with, such as things with MTS, being a music director. I was doing things with, I went to school for teaching, all of these things. I was a director in a show. I was trying to constantly do all these things where I had all these leadership opportunities because I wanted that ability to express and create. And I think one of the things that's so central to me is my ability to act and my want to learn that side of it and the creativity of that. And improv has been something that always drove me, that I've talked about time and time again. Yep. And that specifically for creativity allowed me to really focus in on that. With professionalism and our professional journey, I used a separate campaign that we're both in currently called Strixhaven, which is a source book you can buy online. And I made it my own, and I used that as my pet project to understand and learn how to create and DM games that were 3 hours long. Only 3 hours long, maybe even shorter. And I barely ever write anything for it, so that it is an improv exercise for myself. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is my father. My father his name's Weston Lyon. You can look him up on wherever you want. He has his own publishing company. He helps people write books. That's his whole thing. Whenever I was a kid, I didn't understand. I didn't understand the gravity in which my father held in a room. Mm-hmm. And as I've gotten older, I've been a part of these things like BNI, master classes, stuff like that, where I've really gotten to invest my own time into learning how to market, into learning how to talk to people, and understanding the psychology of what their brain is telling them whenever you say one thing. Or I could go on and on, and I don't want to go on and on. But specifically, having that ability to have the creative side with the ability to now understand and appreciate that business side of it and be able to mesh the two together is the thing that was so important to me on my professional journey, I think.
I think one of the challenges that sort of sat at the back of my mind throughout a lot of this was creating music that both was impactful and complex and interesting without overpowering the dialogue and story that I knew was going to be happening on top of it. Honest to God, I still don't really know if that fully works. I'm getting a thumbs up from behind the camera. And I won't fully know until the music is in the edits, but I feel good about it. I've done the best I can with that. And I would say my other major challenge is just trusting myself. As I've said, I haven't really done this a lot.
Nick and I went on a walk at night. We went on a walk at night and we had started creating this world. And we had created this concept of a character, a villain, to a world.
Yep.
We created, we saw, we were like, what do we want? Okay, we want a high fantasy world. Great. What type of villain do we want? That question was what led us down to here. Because I remember clearly saying to Nick as we were walking, I don't want a clear-cut villain. I don't want a guy who's just a villain just because he loves to be mean. Like a guy who just likes picking on people. That's not what makes villains that stand the test of time and stand in stories. So it was well after this movie had come out, but Avengers Infinity War came out. We're both big Marvel fans.
Yes.
And when that movie came out, I was never a big comic book fan, but I was such a big movie nerd that when they introduced Josh Brolin as Thanos on screen, and I had heard so many people go, you know, Thanos is a bad guy, but I understand why he would kill everyone, like half of the universe, to save everyone else. That was the moment where I was like, that's something some people are going to talk about.
Yeah, there's a concept.
Yeah, there's a concept, there's something that's going to stick. So we started talking back and forth. We were like, okay, what's this type of character? Like, and once we created this bad guy, who we're so excited to debut.
Oh, it's going to be great.
I'm so excited. We created this character in synopsis that has the ability to drain magic from people in a high fantasy world that's filled with magic. Why? Because his own people are being affected by said thing. And he wants to free his people from that. That was the moment where I was, we now have why the story was made.
Yeah.
And where we're going. And how we went from just this one character's idea of we want humanity in a bad guy so that we can resonate with this bad guy and so that we can learn to love both sides of it and see no matter what choice there is, someone's gonna lose.
Yeah.
And it's not just the heroes.
What we're doing today with the pre-test episodes, we did another pre-test recording to make sure that all of our equipment worked before we brought 7 people in to record. And today we're learning to see, does everyone mesh well? Does the equipment still work with all these other people now?
Yeah.
And then I need to, go back, make sure that editing still works, that it works with everyone inside.
I think what makes the dynamic of this group work so well is because we really are friends and allies first before we are co-workers or whatever. Like, these are people who have proven that they really have my back, around the table and outside of. They've accommodated my sensory issues in the past. We've implemented a button from the acting world so we can keep each other safe and are always willing to talk it out, whatever it may be. And we just take care of each other. And I think that's just as important here as in any performing arts field or arts field in general.
A lot of us are in the same program together, and a lot of us have played together before, so there's just a understanding and there's existing friendship there that we can lean on for our characters and for the story we're telling, which is really cool. There's just so much trust that we can really go there and really dive into the story and not have to worry, oh, am I going to hurt the other person's feelings?
I can't imagine a better group. We're all creative by heart. We're all creatives by heart, and we all throw ourselves into this role-playing, and half of us have backgrounds in improv, so nothing will stop us. Truly nothing will stop us, and we'll take any wrench that's thrown at us.
The dynamic is so good. It is amazing. It like literally, like I've said, friends. We're just all buddies and we all connect. And one of the biggest things too that I've known has happened before with other D&D things is like, there's points whenever the characters will have a disparity with another character, and people might take that way too close to heart. I know it's very easy to, you know, do that sort of thing, but like with this group, we just like really lock in. We're like, okay, we are characters. Like this isn't like Adam and Jake arguing over something. This is Leo and Brian arguing over something. Like it's the connection we have, and just the aspect of not getting like just this. We're characters. Like it's not. We don't have to take it like that crazily seriously. I think that's just beautiful. That's, I think, one of the most beautiful parts of it.
I just think there's a lot of creativity to go around. Everyone is bringing their own ideas to the table, and like no two people think the exact same way about how to play the game. And so there's a lot of like clashing between characters, but no clashing between people, which is always a very fun distinction to have. But we all just get along really well, and no matter what is said by the characters, no one takes it personally, obviously. And it's a great fun energy.
Once we wanted to take a step back and like, let's go about the podcast in a really professional way, keep ourselves humble, how to go about this. We spent 2 years doing all the creative stuff. We're like, let's make the story. We will not be ready until we have all the creative stuff done. So that once all that information is there for us, we then just flip the head and we're like, okay, how do we make this happen for this to be the best story that everyone else can enjoy as well with us, because we've been building this up.
Absolutely.
And we want to make sure that everyone else has the opportunity to enjoy that as well, and we tell that story to them.
There is so much in terms of business and creative that have to come together for you to create that perfect storm. And if you don't have one or the other, it's not going to come together. And I think that's what's so important. You have to have both. Yeah. And it might take some time, but you have to invest that time.
Yes, it does take a lot of time.
Yeah.
Like the behind the scenes work that we've done is a lot. And like
sitting on this couch, actually.
Yeah.
Exactly on this couch.
Yeah, just on our laptops typing away, or just like working on like like editing. That takes a long time.
Yeah.
And making sure that whenever we have stuff ready for our productions, we got to make sure that's all ready before we even start. Because that's why, like with the process, how we went about this is that we have this week tracker, right? Like we started way back in the beginning of this summer, and we're like, all right, this month we are accomplishing these things. Next month, this.
That was our saving grace for sure.
And that is what saved us.
Yeah, I think the way I want to end this response for us is my father always says this one specific thing. He always says, there's two things you have in life to make a business run. You either have time or you either have money. We don't have money, so we have time. Is it worth spending that time? For us, yeah. That was our priority. That was something that, because we didn't have that money to fast track it, like we would love to have, we had to spend that time. And I think that's what really defines it for us.
Yeah. Of
that balance is time.
Definitely. You want to know what separates us from everyone? 2 DMs. That's the coolest concept we have.
Yes.
We were like, all right, there are so many amazing DMs out there, and they're great, but you never see them doing the same thing for one type of production campaign story. So we're like, if we can bounce back and forth, of course, we're doing it by arc, so obviously we're going to do a set period of time, but then one person's going to pick up after the other, and that is going to be our brand.
And we have to adapt to that. Like he's saying, like I said with improv before, that's what makes it so unique. Is Nick and I know certain things and like what might go in a general direction of, but we don't know where each other are going to take certain things in certain character arcs.
Nope.
And and what makes that so great is that I think what makes our niche or our niche is because we're doing 2 DMs, because we're roommates, because we're very good friends and we're best friends, we make that work. We haven't gotten to do it fully yet, but I'm really excited to see what happens with that.
Creating the music for Campaign Casters was a collaboration right from the get. Haven and I kept sending back and forth prompts the entire time, and every time I was at a point where I'm like, maybe this is finished, I would get to send it to them and they'd send me back feedback. It was really wonderful to have that sounding board with Haven and also Will, where if I felt stuck at some point on, does this need another section, or could I use another instrument here to get a sound that feels like it's missing, I could send it to them and get their ideas back, because we're stronger as a team than we are on our own. And I've never really got to work with a team to create music, and that was really exhilarating. Before Campaign Casters, I had never actually spent much time composing purely instrumental music. I've been writing music for musical theater for a while, but that was always music with lyrics and with story, and there's a lot that a talented performer can do with that. So this is the first time I really had to make music that was good enough on its own, and that was really scary. And honest to God, I really wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do it, but Haven approached me and I was like, you know what, I'll give it my best shot. And I'm so glad I did, because this has been really exciting. To talk a little bit about my process itself, it's a little all over the place, again, because I don't necessarily have a traditional way of doing it, if there is one. But I always start out with a prompt, and will literally just mull that over in my brain for a little while, and maybe I can pull from that more of a specific storyline I want the music to follow, or I might get a melody in my head or something like that. Then I'll go sit down at my keyboard, plunk out chords or melodies that maybe help to tell that story, fit that vibe, and then I take that and I put that into Muse Score, the program Muse Score. And that is where all the magic happens, because that allows me to write so far out of my own capabilities as a pianist. I'm not a pianist. Anyway, but what I can physically play myself and what instruments I have access to, there's like a limitlessness that comes with working in a digital format that makes it all very exciting.
For those who don't know, I am basically the sound guy on set while we're recording. So I'm usually I have headphones nearby or on. It's hard to wear them and speak at the same time, because I find that I want to move closer to the mic and then I ruin all the sound. So I tend to take them off, but I'll check in every once in a while, and I just gotta make sure that there's no weird sounds going on, because once we've dialed it into a crisp area, there's not much for me to do except check.
Can you walk us through the steps of singing an original song, from the initial idea to the final recording?
I remember Haven sent me a little demo of what it would sound like, kind of gave me the vague concept, and so I worked on the melody, got that down. And then I messaged Haven and was like, hey, what's the song about? Like, what's the context surrounding this song? And as soon as I learned the story, I won't give too much away, but as soon as I learned the story, I was really able to sink into what this character would sound like and how she would sing, and that's when it really came to life for me.
Now that we have our concept and we know what our villain is, how do we still be unique? So we are going to take Dungeons & Dragons and we flipped it on its head.
Oh yeah.
We are taking all your really established lore that you have.
Dwarves, elves, humans, all of it.
Completely, elves are not magical. They are a
barbarian race. They're a barbarian race now.
Yeah.
And dwarves, they're not minors anymore. They're people who actually want to be interested in magic. You have humans.
Gone.
Completely gone. They've abandoned the continent, and they became these amphibious, partial amphibious creatures and pirates. We are, and even the territoire. It's a bunch of people love doing Goliaths. They love this whole thing about Goliaths and them being the broody, grog, strong jaw of all of them, and that's fine. That's great. It works. But by taking things like genies and giants and bringing them together and creating almost like a sort of Goro race, a la Mortal Kombat, and refining that a little bit, I think that really allowed us finding those specific races, finding those specific ways to take those races that people already know and switching them and flipping them on their heads.
Yeah. And then with that, the addition of our new system and our new class. And
Yeah.
the concept of runecraft and runecasting.
For sure, Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We created the story first, and that story shaped this class. Like, we came up with this just general idea, and we were like, okay, this is the way we want it to go. What does this specific rune specifically, what role do they have to play in this world? If you want to...
Yeah, so, like, specifically with the elves, their magic was taken away from them. Mm-hmm. And the way that we had is that there are runes, and they are carved with them. So, like, okay, what is a rune? What are runes? And so we thought about making this entirely new class, where, similar to magic casting, a lot of the world, you know, is predefined by all of this, by all, like, this system, and how the magic works, how, you know, the weave, and how the gods make it function.
At first, I was really terrified because I put in one concept as I could play a runecaster, but I could also do a sorcerer. I could also do a druid. You know, be fine. And then Haven was like, "Well, I think you should do the runecaster," and I got really scared. But I really have come to love it because it's so creative, and I can really, everything is so personalized to the character, and I can make the spells what I want them to be. And there is no rule book. There is, well, starting over, there is a rule book, obviously, but there is no one before me that's played this class really in this public setting. So I'm setting a example, which is a little terrifying, but also freeing because there's no expectation of what it should be. From an audience perspective.
So we wanted to take this concept where we get inspired by a lot of other, you know, mediums. Like, a big inspiration for the rune casting that we had was the Full Metal Alchemist and the Owl House, where they took the shapes of colors and runes, and you could do whatever your mind imagines. So, which is very hard. It is very hard to make a class where it's like, make your own spell, and you get to do it in an action.
And that it's playable, and that it functions, and that people aren't going to be mad at you because you created something new and they can't handle that. Like, like there is so much that runes take to play, and I think especially for the people who are watching this documentary, go watch our pre-test episodes. Go watch our session zeros when we're talking about it and sitting there like for like hours trying to make sure our players comprehend what we're doing.
Yeah.
And like how this, because it's so new. It's so new, and it's something that's trying to break that mold that D&D tends to have with all of its rules. Nick and I both know everything about the characters' backstories, but we don't know which way each other is going to take it.
Yeah.
So, especially because we're both players in it, like Nick can do anything he wants with my backstory. I can do anything I want with his backstory. And we have commonalities of what we know, and we have outliers of what each other knows.
Yes.
And all that takes is through these episodes, is jotting down those notes. Like, damn it, he took that idea. Okay, now I have to go somewhere else.
Do you know how many ideas you took?
I know.
I had to scrap him because he gets the first arc.
So here's the thing, is like, with that, of like creating those storylines, we have two separate processes. That is really hard to navigate around. And not terribly hard, but like, because we're good friends, we're able to work around that.
Yeah.
But I work different than he does in terms of he has his arc set up entirely. I don't have that. I need to feel the characters. I need to know what they're like. I need to know the direction in which they want to go, and I need to feel that world around me. That's how I work personally. So we just did the pretest episodes. I am now going to start writing the first arc. And that's just the reality of it. For me, that's what works best, because I can't plan that far in advance if I don't, because in D&D especially, things never go planned.
Yeah.
They never go planned. So I would say that has been like one of the biggest things that's been interesting about story arcs and stuff is we just have different processes
Yeah.
that we require to feel comfortable.
And what will be really interesting about that is that we, like, I think our DMing styles will also come out, because whenever, you know, I mean, and we're going to play on that as well, because like with our introductions, we're going to have different introductions, so we know who's going to be DMing for that arc and episodes for whatnot.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be really interesting for people to see, and especially for the players who are going to be used to his DM storytelling for like a good amount of it, and make it nice, comfortable, and settled in, and then I'm going to be
boom!
like, hey guys, I'm here now,
Yeah.
and it's going to go crazy.
The immersion matters so much. And the way we achieve that is through description, is through abandonment of our public image and how other people perceive us.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter. I don't care how other people perceive me. Because it just matters how we perceive us.
Right, and it's not only for our players and everyone else at our table. It's for everyone else. It's people who want to feel like they are a part of something, that they can grow with us, because we want to bring everyone we can with us. We're like, you're fans of D&D, so are we. Let me scoop you up. We want to reach out to people and be immersed in our community, and then even outside of it, and have as many people involved. I mean, for even our Patreon tiers, as long as, like, you could be an NPC voice, as long as you submit that in. You can be a part of the podcast as well, and have fun with that, and submit things to immerse yourself in it as well.
Yeah, you can, to bounce off of that, you can create runes. You can ask us for things potentially in the future of what you want us to, of what you want to see from us.
Yeah.
But like, we are open to that, and we are so excited to create something that our audience gets to participate in creating as well.
I would say the most rewarding thing has got to be how much involvement I'm allowed to have in my character creation specifically. Because even though, again, I don't really, sometimes I feel like I'm like not allowed to do this or do that or whatever. I found that everything that I had written down for my character, like, I was pretty much allowed to keep it all, which is very nice to be able to have that much creative control over who I'm playing.
I think my first emotion going into this was frankly just anxiety, fear, because this is a world that Haven and Nick have put so much love and hard work into, and I really loved the character that I had come up with for this campaign, and I just really wanted to do it all justice. And I mean, I've never recorded a podcast before, really, in this capacity, playing with all these mics and the equipment and the cameras that we've had for this documentary, to be so terribly honest. But once we were able to get going, maybe hit half hour in or something, it was able to start to become just like playing D&D with my friends again. And at that point, it was exciting, and it was energizing, and at moments stressful and scary already, and just to be back feeling all those things is so exciting.
There's so many things about it that have been rewarding. I think a big one is seeing my friends tell part of their own story through a character, and seeing the elements of themselves they're able to bring to the table. And I love when they surprise me with what they come up with. I'm like, that's so cool.
It's just so much joy, and of course a little bit of nervousness, because we're on a podcast and that is going to go publicly to so many people, hopefully. But like, it's just mostly excitement. I just like, I'm an early starter like to D&D. I didn't get as much time as many people have, but like, oh my gosh, it has infected me. As soon as it hits my heart, I was like, yes, I just want to live, because I just love it, because it combines two of my favorite things, which is theater and games. It puts them together in a way where I can act but also play a game. I'm like, oh, it's so fun. But I've just excitement through and through. I've just felt so passionate about this, and I can't wait to do so much more with it.
The most rewarding aspect so far has just been sitting down at the table and being able to look across and my friend be there. Like, we've been working for a few good months, at least I have. Don't know how the other side of it looks, but what I've been doing, like, just writing runes and doing different things. And so introducing myself to the world and the Runecaster itself, and it's finally good to sit down and be able to be like, okay, this is it. Like, we're here. We did the journey. Now, like, we cooked the meal. It's time to eat.
Everyone in the world is always a source of inspiration.
Yeah.
Big shout outs, Dungeon Daddies, Critical Role, Cast Party, NADPod.
All of them.
All of them. Dimension 20. I might have said that one.
No, you didn't. You're all good.
But yeah, every one of them. They're such a big, just creative space. And then even movies influence as well. There's everything that when all this type of media, of storytelling, that is always a source of inspiration. And something I just enjoy and like taking from.
Absolutely. I mean, to get a little more specific for me personally, NADPod has been one of the biggest things that really drove me, because it showed me that there was something that could take rules, and like we bend the rules here and there for us, but that could take rules of D&D and make them fun, in terms of like a story that's completely comedic but so serious at the same time, and to be able to do that with 4 people around a table that are all just comedians and improv artists that have that ability, like that was something that drove me. And then Nick introduced me to Dungeons and Daddies.
I love them so much. They're my favorite.
it's so funny because I think Nick and I are actually like, I'm more like Dungeons and Daddies and he's more like NADPod, but we both find joy in those two opposite things, if that makes sense. Because Dungeons and Daddies is so improv format, and there's nothing that, like, yeah, there's writing, but like they just keep going. They bounce off each other. They are playing D&D, but they're not confined to those rules, which is what we wanted to take from for that part. And then NADPod, for me, was so rule-heavy and so specific on things that I was like, see, that's not breaking the rules. It's staying within the confines of the game, but still making it fun. Mm-hmm. So we're kind of taking both of those things, and I think last thing a part of that, in terms of inspiration, Dungeons and Daddies, Freddie Wong, said one of our favorite quotes, and we keep talking about this.
Yes, in their second campaign, when they're just talking about the campaign wrap-up.
Yes, it was at the end of one of their things, and he said, take big swings. It doesn't matter, like, in the context was, as a film, as somebody who's directing, as somebody who's filming, with the movie industry nowadays is just taking things and just doing sequels of them, or just doing reboots because it worked, but that's not what works. Like, yes, it gets you money instantly, but that doesn't mean it works. That doesn't mean people truly enjoy it. It's just another thing you're playing on a nostalgia of. Taking big swings, at least to me, means that no matter what, you're still allowed to mess up, and if you mess up, you learn from it. And you just gotta keep taking those swings, because every shot you don't take, you'll miss.
Once I knew we found our groove whenever we had like that first joke, or the first moment where we kind of like let loose and we all laughed, and we were like just letting loose for a moment. I was like, this is the moment where I was like, okay, these are the people, and this is where we're gonna be. And like, it's just, it just works so well once we let go of the worry of like how people will like view us. That's the biggest thing that I also like about improv, is that once you let go of the, oh gosh, what do they think of me, or like all those different self-doubts, you can do so many fantastic things. And like whenever we let those jokes and just like laughed and let ourselves go, that's really when I think it really clicked together.
I'm really, really hoping that battle, when everything's burning down, Leo's floating through the air and I'm eating people's heads. I really hope that sets most of the series, because I really do love some good chaos, like a controlled chaos. And I'm glad that all of our characters are relatively good people. Like, there's good chaos and then there's like evil chaos, and we're not leaning into evil chaos. This was more good chaos. It just happened that way.
Yeah.
And I love that. I also love the very little moments.
Something that didn't really occur to me was, being the only criminal in the group, how many questions people would ask me about criminal-related things. Probably should have expected that, but I didn't. But there was like the first time that Nick, I think he was the first one to do it, he turned to me and he was like, "Brian, what do you think about this?" And I was like, I don't know. Great question. Yeah, I hide things in the water. I didn't know what to say, but that in particular is what like really got me to be like, oh, I should think more.
For Lycan, she's very observant, and so she caught Brian stealing a coin at one point, and she's going to be on him about it, and I'm excited to see where that relationship goes in particular, but I think she's got a big heart, and I think she'll be the heart of the group, and I'm excited to see how everyone else interacts with each other.
So I think one of the scenes that was most impactful to me personally came in our first of these episodes where Gael was able to start to find some really niche clues as we were searching for a lead on these boots that were stolen. Because up to that point, I'd felt like I'd been really quiet because they're not a super talkative character, and I'm like, oh no, am I gonna get to establish who I am and who I am in this party? And at that point, I was able to fully articulate, this is a skill that Gael has, and this is how they would frame their thoughts about it to the world, to other people. And I felt like I was finally able to engage and state, this is who I am, and was able to move forward with everyone knowing that sort of place that I come from.
What's really interesting, this is like midpoint for us because we tried starting a podcast and failed, but like this right here is the beginning for Campaign Casters.
Absolutely.
For Haven of Nine Story, for everyone involved in the podcast.
Yeah.
And everyone that will, and all the listeners and audience and fans that want to see where this goes. This is the beginning of that story.
Yeah, and I think with that is we want to make sure we're producing quality content. But also I think we want people to understand, like, there might be a moment when we mess up. There might be a moment when we do fail again.
Yeah.
But we're gonna learn from that. We're not just gonna go, best I can do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's not what we want to do. We want to continuously learn. We want to continuously get feedback and to implement whatever our audience is seeing, and take those big swings and take the things that we want to be furthering on. So yeah, it is the beginning.
I really hope that the audience gets to experience like the warmth that I feel at our table, and gets to have a piece of our friend group in a way, and feel a place at our table.
As a group, we had briefly touched on the idea of bringing TTRPGs into educational settings somewhere down the road. And I think that is an idea that feels so special to me, because D&D and TTRPGs have been a real space for the weird kids, which I was very much one of, and still arguably very much am. I mean, there's a reason that D&D therapy is a thing, and that it's been such a safe space for like queer and neurodivergent people. And I think the ability for this game to help people work through things in their real lives, like I've certainly had that experience where I've been able to channel things I was going through into my character and get reassurance in game that helped me as a person outside of game. And it can build social skills and confidence, and you get to be the hero of your own story, and I think that can make you a more creative and compassionate and empathetic person in your life. And the idea that we could help spread that is a really cool idea to me.
One of the biggest things to remember from this podcast and all the stories that we tell is that we are a family. And that's the whole, I think that's the real point and meaning of D&D, is it's a group of people joining together to work together and fight a task that in the real world might not even matter at all, but to us in this moment it does. And I think that's just putting the feeling of family together, knowing that you're a part of this family, with us. Not only are we a family, but also our viewers. We want you to share listen to these stories, feel these stories with us, laugh with us, cry with us, all of those things. Just being just with us, because we're all family, and that's really what it is.
It doesn't matter how janky it is, as long as you're playing. I want people to play because we play. You don't have to record it, but if you want to record it, go for it. I want to be inspirational.
It is so important that you don't rush yourself. Like you were saying, and like I was saying, the patience is the thing that makes it go all the way. If you have a vision, yes, have that vision. But don't get afraid and don't back away from it as soon as you go, well, that's a loophole. Oh my gosh, because if we were going off of loopholes, Nick and I would not be here right now.
Oof, yeah.
Because, sure, there's some things in our story currently that might need even work, and I don't think so right now, because we've spent a lot of time.
No, it's perfect.
Yeah,
it's good. No change.
But there's always going to need to be that time for change, even if you've been working on it for 2 years. You need to be adaptable, you need to be flexible, and you need to be fluid. Don't just say, oh, I have this vision, this is the only thing that can happen. Because it won't. It won't be. Or you lose that vision.
So I think I want listeners to most take away that there is a space for you at the TTRPG table and in the fantasy worlds that we create. It's already meant a lot to me to be playing a character who is canonically non-binary and autistic, and I'm so excited to get to continue to explore what that looks like in the world. I don't have to conform to some ideal to play this game. I don't have to leave myself behind to pick something that's more normal and typical and whatever. So I know we've talked so much about how Campaign Casters is about taking this game and flipping it on its head, and I think, yes, that applies to all the technical stuff, and that also applies to the stories we allow ourselves to tell and the way we are allowed to show up as ourselves in the game.
It's just like having a fun little epic story in your back pocket, and I like the idea of having an audience that can be a community and be like, oh, you remember when that happened, and have those common moments, because I think that's such a cool thing about RPGs in particular is how spontaneous it is and how magical moments can happen just by the nature of the game.
Even though it is lots of laughs and fun, that these are truly expansive characters that we can laugh and have fun, but there is a person underneath this that isn't just there to laugh and have fun. They do have more than that. There's more emotion than joy.
Have a vision, because as long as you know what you're wanting to do and you're not doing it just because everyone else is doing it, then you're not going to set yourself apart from anyone. So if you have that vision, and then once you start spending that time and effort, you're going to be much more proud of what you produce.
This is something we want to do so that we can tell those at home, hey, you can do it. This is how we did it. It's just, you just got to be patient. You have to be. You have to spend your time learning the things that are required to have both creative, technical, business, all of the in-between. And keep taking big swings.